And the next message comes in on the Facebook, but not on Sovereign Grace Institute of Apologetics, not even on my personal messenger. This one came in on The Church Militant, the book that I'm working on, that I've been working on and off, going back to 2007. That's still not come out to this day. And it's sent in by William Shabazz in East St. Louis. And Brother Shabazz, that name obviously leads me to know that you're with the Nation of Islam. At least you were conferred Shabazz upon you. You probably had to be X for a while until you sold enough incense and enough final calls or whatever to where they said, okay, instead of being X, well, we're going to give you Shabazz. You roll the dice, you can flip a coin whether you're going to become Shabazz or Muhammad. Destroying the religion of Wally Dodd Ford, Louis Eugene Walcott, Elijah Poole, etc., is outside of the scope of addressing your question, although I've done a lot of work in annihilating what you have dedicated your life to. And I ask that you keep on looking at my work, because the Nation of Islam is a different head of the same devil, but it is a head of the devil nonetheless. The false God, the false prophet, the false book, the false religion. It points you in the direction of hell, and on your way there screws up your life and your belief system in ways that you might never recover from. And I'm willing to send you some information if you would like. But your question, why did the Christian God get tired? Why did he need to rest on the seventh day? The question, why did you walk across the street? It assumes that you walked across the street, skips over any duty to prove you walked across the street, and then begins discussing the why. It's like if I said, hey, Brother Shabazz, why did you rob the bank 2 weeks ago? You say, well, I didn't rob no bank. Fine. But if you didn't rob the bank, then the question of why can't exist, right? So instead of dealing with why did the Christian God get tired, why did he do the rest on the seventh day, I'm going to back up and address whether or not that's even true that he needed to. Because if he didn't need to, then the question of why has to go away. And Brother Minister blah, blah, blah at local mosque number 5 in East St. Louis, who planted that garbage question in your mind, should be ashamed. But I'm willing to debate him in front of your face if you ever need me to. And he's going to lose, and he's going to lose bad. But at least it might help you. You're referring to Genesis 2:2, and no doubt the King James Version, if this was 1611 and in Europe, and we spoke a certain dialect of the English language that doesn't exist anymore, the concept of rest would make more sense. But since we are not in England and it's not 1611, we can go back instead of the European imperialistic concept of forcing culturally this stuck in time language onto people's belief system. We can go back to the Hebrew scriptures done by Semitic people of color in the Middle East, and we can go to the original and try to get a better understanding than King James or his politicized and inept translation committee had available to them. And basically, you're referring to Genesis chapter 2, verse 2. And as I look at the Hebrew and just try to put it into English, based on how someone in America in 2023 would talk, it basically says, by the seventh day, God had completed the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he stopped working on everything that he had done. That's all that it means. His immediate acts of creativity were over. Have you ever watched a courtroom drama where they say the prosecution rests, the defense rests? Following you to your logical conclusion with your question, you have to understand them to be saying, we have been so thoroughly exhausted and tired by putting forth our arguments and our witnesses and our evidence that we now want to go home and go to sleep. That's not what they're saying. They're saying the things we've been doing are done and we're ceasing to do them going forward. Right? That's all that this is saying. God created for 6 days, and then on 7 days he ceased his creative activity. Period. And I'm trying to be as kind as I can. I know that you have been informed with some clear confusion. King James, they called him Queen James in the streets of England because he so loved the little boys. And like I said, his translation committee was compromised. I rarely go to the King James because it's barely worth the paper that it's printed on. And anytime I find a so-called Christian who is in love with and married to the King James translation, their belief system and ultimately their life practice is usually at some point becomes crazy. The conversation starts good and goes to a crazy place later. I could see if we're in the 1950s and that was the only English translation we had available to us, but we have better English translations that go back to the Hebrew text and bring out not only what we know about the languages through the science of archaeology and things, but also puts it into the kind of English that we speak today, so that we can't become confused. Like when someone in 1611 in England heard the phrase, he rested on the seventh day, they would know that means he stopped doing what he was doing. It doesn't mean, I'm exhausted, I need a nap. And that misunderstanding has actually given birth to Sabbatarian groups that are in error grossly, and they think God rested on the seventh day, so we're going to rest on the seventh day, and they don't do anything on the seventh day. But if you notice, God's seventh day was only Adam's second day. Adam didn't have a seventh day to observe, right? There wasn't a Sabbath for him like that. Moses is writing the book of Genesis as an old man, having already historically received in his old age, years before that, the 10 commandments. He would know the commandment, remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. And he would be using that light and that knowledge in the way he chose to construct his account in Genesis 2 of God's seventh day, if that's what he was meaning here. God was exhausted, so he took a nap for a whole day, so now you got to take a nap for a whole day. That's not there. And again, Adam doesn't observe a Sabbath. And then does God, after resting on the seventh day, begin days 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, working and creating more so that he can rest on day 14? No, he doesn't. He never began creating in that sense of the word ever again. So any Sabbatarian who wants to follow God's example as they understand it here, they would have to cease doing anything for the rest of their life and to sit on their butt, right? That can't be what it means, that he rested, he's exhausted, he's taken a day off, he's Ferris Bueller or whatever. All it means is that he ceased his creative activity. And I hope that sufficiently answers the question. I rest my case. That doesn't mean I'm about to go to sleep. That means I'm done talking about this issue and I've argued it the best I can. And now I'm ceasing my speaking activity on the subject. Do you understand what I'm saying?